are issued for large parts of Japan. Joining me, Ahmad Bostan, the Director of Communication at humanitarian aid organisation, the Penny Appeal. Thanks so much for joining me. And your organisation has responded in recent years to major earthquakes.
Good morning, Wilfred. Yes, absolutely. Sadly, there have been a number of earthquakes in recent times, namely the earthquake in Turkey and Morocco, which your viewers will recall from last year. And sadly, we are seeing that earthquakes, tsunamis, natural disasters in general are becoming more and more common as the effects of climate change and other circumstantial factors increase around the world.
Presumably, there's a big difference here between the two earthquakes last year, and the expectation being Japan is relatively well prepared for these sorts of things?
They are, and unfortunately, Japan is no stranger to earthquakes. As you know, there are earthquakes of some kind, 4 or 5 of them each and every year in Japan. Of course, the most severe of them was the earthquake and subsequent disaster that we saw in 2011 in Fukushima, which of course cost the lives of over 18,000 people. So no matter how well prepared a country is, there are still going to be, sadly, casualties and people in need that humanitarian organizations like ourselves, through our partners, will need to help and respond to. And it's incredibly scary for people right now on the ground in the earthquake-affected area, and with the first signs of the tsunami now coming in. Every 10 minutes or so, you're seeing earthquakes alerts being raised in that part of Japan. So it's incredibly difficult for people right now. It's winter conditions on the ground over there, incredibly cold temperatures. Nightfall has just fallen in Japan, as you know, and there are people who are really racing against the clock to evacuate and to leave behind their belongings, which is always a very distressing and heartbreaking experience for any family, no matter their economic circumstance.
I don't know how well you know Japan's policies in this area, but what do you make of the scale of the warnings that the government, the national broadcaster, the meteorological agency have been issuing?
I think the response has been very strong, and there has been a huge amount of work done on the part of the government, the media agencies, and all organizations involved working together, which has been extremely effective. But as I said previously, there is no way in which you can really prepare yourself for what's going to come. You don't know the effects of an earthquake or a tsunami, unfortunately, until it hits and the disaster is there before you, no matter how much preparation you do. But we, as humanitarian organizations, are on standby for that call of international assistance whenever it comes to respond to the needs of the Japanese people.
And just finally, your take on tsunamis and how to prepare for them and the scale of what we're expecting. What we've had reported from the meteorological agency in Japan so far is a 1.2-meter wave in Noto in the Ishikawa prefecture. Warnings from the state broadcaster of waves up to 16.5 feet. What is the scale that we're talking about there of those sorts of waves and the damage that they might cause?
They are very significant. So far, we've seen that a lot of the waves that have been seen have been around just over a meter, as you know, but they are set to increase, and that area is set to increase. It can be really severe. We'll recall the terrible tsunami we saw in Indonesia nearly over 20 years ago now. And as you know, that cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. And as your previous speakers were saying, the earthquake in itself brings a huge amount of destruction with it. But the tsunami is really the concern. You imagine a huge wave of water that takes out anything in its wake. It is a very scary thought. And while people are being encouraged to go to those higher areas, higher lands, it's unclear as to this stage of how many people will actually be leaving their homes and will actually be going to those areas, and whether the areas that they're fleeing to will actually be far enough. As we know, water travels, water can go up, and it's just very, very scary whenever we see any of these instances of tsunamis, because you really don't know the impact it could have. And the most important thing is that all of us, whether we're organizations or individuals, stand ready to help in whatever way we can to whatever needs people will have, because there will be a scale of recovery that will need to be undergone. And as you know, the effects of the Fukushima disaster, the people of Japan are still trying to recover from that. The effects of what happened to the nuclear actors back then are still being felt by the people of Japan. So let's not be under any illusion that this earthquake and tsunami is going to be something that comes and goes. The impact of it will sadly be felt for many weeks, months, if not years to come. But we're ready.